Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're having a good day. I hope you had a good evening last night, and I hope you have a good week. There's there's just everything is new, and it's kind of like what you make it. Okay. Um, this video here is gonna just kind of briefly touch on the download manager, the application. I kind of wanted to go over some of the features, and this is probably going to be quite a bit longer than the video, a video that I would normally make because I'm going to cover a lot of different things. Just as a status on it, it's kind of I've got it about where I want it to be. I've got two more processes or methods that I want to code. One of them is what I'm going to term a collection. It's not so much a collection as to how, let's say, the Nexus would do it. It's more of just a very simple kind of a collection to where you can easily rebuild everything from the scratch using the existing applications that I've already got. I think I released the FOMod utility, but I'll have to do it more publicly. It was kind of released over on I think it was Sim Settlements 2. I linked it up on the developers forum so they could check it out and let them kind of look at it before I actually kind of release it, let's say on the Nexus. Okay, so let me kind of take you through this. Um, so let me go ahead and launch the application, and I'm going to show you what the application looks like when it starts up. This is pretty much it. For right now, it does require the Nexus requires some type of authorization in order to access it. And I really only have 2 options. It's either gonna be an API key or it's going to be, an OAuth, an authorization, like a login. So for right now, the easiest way and the fastest thing for me to do was to provide an application key or an API key. And all that key is everybody has one. If you have a from what I understand, if you have a free account, you have one. If you have a paid account, you have one. The only difference is free accounts don't really allow you to download files without using the web page. So that's what I understand it to be. Like I said, I haven't really looked at it too much, but that's the kind of the feedback I'm getting. So I don't know if that's really going to help at that point. But that being said, you should still be able to use this application, I believe, using the Mod Manager download button as opposed to the manual button. I still believe that's going to work. But this is the interface that you see. I'm gonna go ahead and bring up the games menu. These are just some games I have. I provide this game configuration file with all these applications, just kind of like as a standard. You can add or remove things however you want. This monitors active threads, and you can see these threads are currently running. And anytime you download a file, the thread is going to show up down here. And it's actually pretty accurate when it comes to remaining download time, but it'll actually show up down here. And then this is where you're going to input your API key. Now the API key is not I don't store it. I don't use it other than it's localized within this application and it's only temporary. So the once you exit the application and the memory is freed, the API key is not stored anywhere. So you'll have to input that every single time. I can put something in here to where you can specify your API key as a startup parameter. I think I have it in there, but I don't really use it. At least I'm not going to use it here since API keys are unique to each person and you don't really want to share your keys with somebody else. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and enter my key and then but you're I'm gonna stop this video and then I'm going to start up a new video where I enter my key and we will take it from there. Okay, so give me just a second. Okay, I've entered my application key and you just press enter and you'll see that we now have a mirror selector up here where you can select the mirrors that you want. And you can so when the mirror selection pops up, and then it actually gives you this message here, this welcome message, you know that the API key is okay. It's going to work. So what I want to do is we're going to switch over here to Fallout New Vegas, and I want to show you some of the features. So to start out with, you can build a database of files based on one of two things. I went ahead and included the SHA-256, which is what I use, or you can specify. Let me show you. You can specify MD5. So you can actually have this option here if you want to store your hashes as MD5, which is what the Nexus uses. You have the option to do either or you can do either. Let me just double check this. Yeah, we're good. So you can actually, by turning this on, it's going to use the MD5 hash instead of SHA-256. And that means that when that database is built, you already have the hash for the file. So at that point, you can easily just look up what if you want to get access to that specific file, you can find the game, you can find the game name, you can find the file ID, and all of that from that hash. Makes it kind of easier to access. This is just startup information. This is just the starting game. That's the game it starts under. That's why when this came up, it was under this right here was actually under Skyrim Special Edition. User, it does have some. The games library does use it does kind of take into consideration a multi-user environment. Therefore, you can just leave that default. Mirror, that's the default mirror you want to show up here, which is what it shows. You can also specify that in a command line. You don't have to put it here. And here's the menu options. This is kind of like a common menu. It's the home button up here. You'll see that if I click this, it'll show some menu options. And this, so kind of go over top of this, but I'll show you. So see, it has like some menu options, but I really don't have any of those menus. I don't have any of those options put in there yet. So it's just kind of like just a placeholder. But you can see that there's a site button, which is this. This is the site button. And it's gated so that if when you give it your API key, it actually validates the user information to see if it's a valid user. If it is, then it says, okay, is it a premium user? If it's a premium user, you will see all of these options. If it's a non-premium user, you will see that option. But like I say, I don't think I can actually generate a download link. I think I have to you have to go to the website. So I believe it's still going to work, but like I said, I haven't tested it yet because like with my API key, it's a paid account. And then these are for like archive files. This is a menu for like the archive files list. You have the mod files. And then I'll show you all that here in just a second. And then there's the active workers if you want to put a menu for that, because I'm actually going to put some stuff in here to where you can kill the task. There's the messages, and these are the items. This is the menu right here for it's kind of like the default menu. This is the default menu. And you can see like there are certain options here. So to kind of go through them real quick, you can build your database. You can, this right here, these are the exact same method. These are exact same call. I'm pretty sure it's the exact same call. If I go in here and take a look, you'll see that it is the exact same call right here. See 2892, but the parameters you pass are different because the menu acts like an interface between the methods in the application and the user. So the way that kind of is layered is the menu provides it provides the access to the event pipe, and the event pipe gives you access to the actual methods. So there's kind of like a little bit of a three-tiered layer. So you can go in and you can build either or. This builds it from your managed folder, which is configured in program control, and I don't know if I have that here. Let's see. I want to go over to program game config. It's game config any. This is where you define right here. This is where you kind of define your folders. You can do it over here. And it's just a common configuration point is what it is. So different applications can actually have the same configuration points, folders, files, things like that. Um, so you can build your database. I've got mine built. I build it a little bit each day, and I've been testing this for a while. It seemed so far it's working really good. I don't know how it's gonna really handle for everybody else until they actually give it a shot. The next feature, you can import file hashes. So if somebody else has file hashes that are the same type, such as MD5 or SHA-256, you can import those. So if they've already done the work, then there's no reason to replicate the same amount of work. They can just give you the file and you can import it into your current database. There is a collision report, and the collision report is based on, let's go ahead and take that little check out. The collision report is based on whatever the current game is. And these are all the collisions that I found in about, I think, like 6,700 files. And some of these would be the exact, it would be duplicate files. It's from the same mod author. Some of them are where the mod ID changed. It's the exact same file, but the mod ID changed. But you do have that report you can look at. I went ahead and put in, let me bring this back up. I went ahead and put a couple other reports in here. There is a drive report, and the drive report, literally, this is part of the utilities library. So each library has its own canned reports, and all you have to do is call the report and then have the code to display the report. That's really all it is. Very simple. It does pretty much all the work for you. You can just do copy and paste. That's what I did. And then there's another report, which is an archived files report. And what this does is you have a function over here called, see, this is just a report here. And you have a function over here called archive previous versions. And what that does is that goes by mod ID and file name. So if you want to consider it like a sort, mod ID, and then the file name within that. And the file name is considered to be a short name, not the full file name, but the short name. So I basically take the mod ID and I generate a short name for the file. So I have to figure out where to split that file name in order to make sure that that is the most commonly occurring file name for the same file in that same mod. And then once I get that list, I sort them in ascending order by date. And if you want to keep, and this, you tell it over here how many you want to keep, which is right here. Right here. So see, this is the folder where my downloads are stored. That's the first parameter, and these are positional parameters. The second parameter is that is your archive device. That's where the files are going to be copied off to. And then your fourth parameter, so this would be 0, 1, 2, 3, which is the fourth parameter. That's how many current versions you want to keep. So if I have 3 versions of the same file, version 1, version 2, version 3, it's only going to keep version 3. It's going to back off 1 and 2 onto this drive. And so it lets you archive them off is what that does. And that helps to manage some of the storage space that happens over time. Some of the other features you have is you have a check for updates. Now, the check for updates, what it does is you give it a list of folder or file names. So if you were to look, I'm going to try to see if I can get this where you can see it. Let's see here. I believe you can see this. So if I was to go over this way, I don't think there's any here, but we'll take a look. Yeah, there's none here. So let's go back over to Fallout 3 real quick. Because Fallout 3 is not as big as, let's say, Skyrim or Fallout 4, so it'll load much quicker. But if you take a look here, once it comes up, I'm looking at the install order. So, like, let's say if you're talking about, I'm not familiar with, let's say, Vortex. Um, oh man, I actually changed this on yeah, that doesn't like that one. Okay, well, that's not going to work. All right, so let's go over here. Oh, I guess we're not done loading. Oh, you know why? I'll tell you exactly what happened. I guess it's not done loading all the files. That's probably what that is. Or it loaded them from something else. I'm not really sure. Yeah, I
Let's
just
get to
that's one
modding.
I was just now working on. I was trying to get this to get this configured to work. There we go. That's what it was. All right, cool. Okay. So what it is, it's a thread timing issue. It's multi-threaded, so I didn't wait for the thread that handles all the available to get done, so it didn't know what to do with it. But this is an example. I'm going to take this out. This is what happened was actually in the process of testing the data, this used to be in these categories up here, but now I had to programmatically stick them down here to get them back in there. So I'll just have to resort them, but that's not a problem. But what I wanted to show you was these are the folder names. This is the folder name I'm talking about, and that is based on the actual file name, which we are going to hunt down somewhere here. You're gonna hunt down here. So the way that this application kind of does it is this is the actual file name and that's the folder name. So it's basically the same name minus the file extension, and they are in two different locations on the same drive. So you can either give it this or you can give it this because what it's interested in the actual context inside the file or folder name. That's what it's interested in. So let me get this back in the foreground and let me get this back in the foreground. So that's kind of like how that works. You give it either or. And then what it does, it actually looks to see if there's any newer versions of those files. The only caveat behind that is that it's gotta be either the file name that you give it, the custom name, or it has to be a legacy name, meaning that it's the file name that the Nexus sees it. It can only be one of those two things. Anything outside of that because it has to kind of without hashing it. Now, if they're hashed with MD5, you could put code in there that uses the hash database. It's all right there. I mean, actually, it's all loaded, so you can actually use that to retrieve information about that file. So you could do that. But in my case, I use the SHA-256, so I'm not using MD5. So I'd have to rehash the programming. And it's not really a problem because all the methods are in here. And I actually did include, there is a Nexus library. So I did break this out in a DLL. So if you were to actually look at the application, you will literally see a Nexus DLL right here. So that can be used in other applications as well. And it does use Newtonsoft's JSON libraries. So that's all in there. But you can check for updates. And what it does, it looks at the file or folder name, and then it actually goes back onto the Nexus and says, is there any updates for this? Now, unfortunately, there is a limit, which is what we'll show here on how many files you can actually have, or not how many files, but how many requests you can make per hour. And I think with an account, like with a paid account, I think it's like a couple thousand, 20,000 a day, but it's less than that if you have a free account. So, and those requests go against those hourly rates. And some load orders and some mod lists can be really, really just incredibly huge. But that's that feature. And then you have another one, which is gonna be show me the mod files, and I'm getting ready to show you that next. So we're gonna go over here, and I'm gonna download a mod. I think I deleted this for this demo, so I can download it
Download
again.
started.
And you can actually see where it picked it up. You can see here down here, and then that's how it downloads. So see it's done. And you can, like I say, you can keep the sounds if you want. I like it because I like to know whether something succeeded or failed. But down here, this tells that this particular program received the inter-process communication request because it's actually running two different programs. There is a dispatcher, and then there's this program. So it's listening for any dispatch commands to come in, and then when it finds them, it acts accordingly. And the way that I've laid the code out, you can actually add your own commands in super easy. Listening for the dispatch, listening for a command, which is actually a named pipe. Uh, it's the name of the application. All applications have different names, at least the ones I do have different names. So each one can have its own pipe and it can listen, and then you just go into that event pipe, the event pipe over here, this pipeline right here, this is the pipe receive. So anytime there's anything comes in on the named pipe, it formats it into a data structure, and then it calls this method and passes that data to it. And that's what you see. And of course, that's the Nexus link that goes and that actually comes to this application from the dispatcher. And then it's up to this program to kind of parse it out. So yeah, that's that, and that's what I've been testing now for about 2 or 3 weeks now, maybe going on 3.5. It works just fine. I've even downloaded 2 point something gigabyte files. I haven't had any drop. I don't have the code in here to automatically restart if it breaks, like if the download for some reason breaks. I don't have that in there, and I also need to go down here and put to where, because this is the normal menu, but this right here needs to be a very specific menu. So that way, this is a common menu, and this is a common menu. You can see they're actually the same thing. But depending on what you click on, you're going to have a lot more options. See, there's more options there because I clicked on something that's a file name. And I'll show you that here in a second. But that's how you can check for updates. You can check for a single program. You can check for multiple. I mean, you can check for a single file, multiple files. You can give it a list. The way that I set it up, you can give it a list by doing copy and paste to the clipboard. You can specify a list. You can even specify a single file name parameter if you want. And that's what gets passed here. That's what's getting passed through here. And I think if we take a look at check for updates, you'll see that I passed no parameter to it. See, check for updates. And then that's the operation code. Now, if I put a parameter in here, like if I put something like this and I specify a file name up here, or if I put, like, let's say, a prompt, I tell it I want you to prompt me for the file name, but that's I didn't really include that in this because it's easier just to do copy and paste. I can literally go over to here and then I can just do a Control C, and then I can just go over to here and I don't even have to do a Control V. And then I just literally go over to here and I say check for updates, and it'll look for that file or one file, like one file. You can do it that way, or you can pass it a list. Okay. Let's take a look at the next one here. I have show mod files. So this is something I added here recently. This is one I just added. So if you right click on this and you do show mod files, you get this report. And it shows you what you've already downloaded. And the way that I do this is there's one of two ways. Basically, you can provide it a list of files, or it will go to wherever your download files are and it will dynamically load that list. Now, when you have a lot of files, dynamically loading the list can take a long time, especially when you get a lot. Because then your hard drive has to cache it, and if it already has other things cached, it's got to free cache space up, and that can take quite a while to do. So the fastest thing is for the programmer or the user to create their own cache. And that's what I did. So I basically got a file list. I just used DOS. I used a command prompt and DOS to literally just list the file names, nothing else. And then I dumped that in a text file, and then that's what I put here for each game, and that's what it looks for. So that's how it gets this information. These two, if it has a plus sign, means it's for the current day. You can see the current day over here. And you can put more information here. This is just what I put. But what you can do is you can right-click on one of these, or you can copy as many as you want. So I've got 2 here highlighted. So I'm going to right-click and I'm going to say download.
Downloads.
And you can see that it downloaded both files. Now, this isn't automatically updated. This form isn't automatic to show that I already have these. So, and that's pretty much that. Now, that method allows you to create a list of files that you want to download, which is what I'm going to get to next. That's basically what that does. So it's pretty simple stuff, meaning that there's not a lot of code to it. It's very direct. The methods are all broken out over here. There's a lot of it's broken out over here in the Nexus DLL library, and it's broken out over here. So I can show you here real quick. So you can actually see, let's go back up here. Is this where it gets called? No, 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 not here. Here we go. Maybe this one, or maybe no, we're still in the same one. Yeah, it calls the same function, but what I'm looking for is more of I'm looking for more of is it this one? I think that's more of the routine. I'm looking for more of a direct kind of a call. It's not gonna cooperate. But basically, it calls a method. I think it's 2945. Let's see. Yeah, download mod file. So this is in the pipe. This is the opcode pipe. You call this function. You can call this function in a script. You can call it in a menu. You can call it programmatically. You just create the actual operation code. Um, you allocate like a function info structure. You populate that structure with your parameters, and then you just throw it in the queue, and then the whole system, the whole framework just says, "Yep, I got something to process. Let me see what I can do with it," and it'll try to tell you if it's not going to work. And it does have some error trapping in there, but this actually checks. It'll actually check to see up here. You can specify a single file to download, or you can specify a list. And if you don't specify a list, it gets the selected items. So you can actually have items that are selected in, let's say, a list view report. You can do that, which is what I did. This right here, if I do like show mod files, that's what this is. This is a list view report. And you can see now it updated. See, because now it's actually updated saying I got them. And that makes it easier if you have a lot of different files. Like if you've got because here's an example of why I put that method or that functionality in here. Because let's say that all of a sudden I want to start modding, let's say Oblivion, and it says, "Oh, you need this mod and this mod." Or this mod has all these different patches. Well, when I first mod Oblivion, I have no idea what I'm going to put in the game and what I'm not going to put in the game. I have no clue. So I usually take things like one step at a time. So, okay, fine, let me get the files. And, naturally, you can't grab every single file on day one, but I'm just going to start building up my library of files. Once I have this done, then I can go through and not only see what files that that's recommended I put in my game, but I can also find files that I can also do my own thing. I can say, wait a minute, I like what this does. It's a new program, so it may not be in the top 100 download list because it's brand new. So I'm like, you know what? I like this. I want to put this new program, this new mod into my game. So I kind of grab them all. And in this case, if there's like 10 different patches, and I don't even know what kind of patches I want to put in my game yet, I literally can just hold control, click, highlight them all, right click, and say I want to download all of them. And it does that. It'll actually do them all. And that opens up the door for one of the final pieces that I talked about initially, which was collections. And once I get that up and working, I will, I'll show everybody what that does. Yeah, so and the way that I kinda wanna do collections, I'm gonna try my best to really simplify it. So, literally, you could, create the file with just a text editor and have the information that you need. So, that way it works like manual. You could do, like, manual installs or, automated installs. Because I think the way I want the collection to work is gonna be like an automated install. Okay. So that's kind of like how this is and what that particular feature does. And then let's take a look at some of the others here. I've got I've got there's a batch rename, which literally uses the hash. So it uses the hash database that you build up here to hash a file, and then you can rename it. That's what the batch rename does. So it uses your local database that you created to rename files accordingly. This allows a person to get a file, that database file. They can just take it from somebody else. You can import it, and then that way you can run it against your files, and then that way it will give them the file names you want them to have. So that's kind of like, because whatever file name is in the database, that's what they get named to. And then therefore you could use somebody else's naming system if you want. When I download these files, oh, let me show you this real quick. So this rename folder files, this actually it hashes a file using MD5, and then it will actually look to the Nexus, and it will say, okay, I need to know about this particular file, and it goes by the hash. Now, moving on to GraphQL, it can do the same thing. But for right now, I wanted to get this working with 1.1 and then or 1.x of the API before I move to 2 and the version 2 and 3. And that's what this does. So this uses the database to rename, that uses the Nexus to rename, which requires a person to be logged in and to have a connection to it. Manage download. These options don't necessarily have to be in the menu because the menu's over here. They don't have to be in here. You can just comment them out. Like I just put a comment in front of this, it won't show up. Like over here, see where this would say, as example, testing. See, I have testing down here. If I go over to here, let's bring this up. If I go over to here and I comment this out and I save it back, that option no longer appears over here. See, it's gone. So it dynamically adjusts to the changes that you make. However, it doesn't hot load everything. It loads that on demand. And the way that it was coded, it uses what I call a configuration file, um, like a class. And whenever you go to load any data from an existingly from a data file that you've already loaded, it'll actually say, has that file changed? And if it does, it reloads it and gives you the latest information. That's why this works. However, things like localizations have to be reloaded. They're not, these particular smaller applications don't have the hot load feature in. It's so easy to add. You would technically just go over to here. And right here, 711 is when a file is created, but you're looking for more file changed. And what you would do is literally say, if the file is changed, you would pass that over to, like, let's say this library here. You want to go all the way up here. You would want to pass it to, I believe it's right here. No, it's library. We want library. Here we go. You would actually call this, and it's each library has its own refresh method, and it's the job of that method to determine if it needs to reload whatever files, and that's, as you can see, if it's users, if it's utilities, key maps, and there's probably a few I need to put in here because the code changes as I go. So if it encounters any of these, it will refresh it. So it'll actually reload it. So you can call hot loading, and that's really all you have to do. So if you get an event over here, you would literally just say whatever the library is, and then you would say refresh library, and I believe you pass the name of the library to it. Yeah, you passed a file name. That's all you would do. So, and that's all it takes. And then that will allow you to hot load the libraries. I just haven't put that in there, and that's really all it takes. Whoops, we don't want to do that. That's going to blank everything out. And that's all you have to do. All right, so back over to here. Let's take a look at this. We've got so down to manage all files. Basically, when I download a file with this application, it uses the Nexus's domain. So, as an example, Skyrim Special Edition is all crammed together. Instead of saying Fallout space New Space Vegas, it's under the domain of uh, New Vegas, just all crammed together. So it's like 7 letters all crammed together. So to manage them, what I want to be able to do is all this does is move them. It moves them from where I download them to, because there's a, it downloads them locally to wherever this is, and it will move them to wherever they need to be. And you configure that over here in the any, I believe. Let's see, where are we? I believe you configure it. Oh, nope, nope, nope. I believe it's in the Nexus now that I think about it. Where's the Nexus any? Right here. So this is where so see, that's the actual domain in, let's say, to the Nexus, and this is where I want to move. This is where I manage the files. So if I were to go up here and say that I want to manage all files, then what you're going to see is it's going to start copying them over. And that's what it does. So you can see that it moved them from wherever they were downloaded to, the domain they were downloaded to wherever they need to go. And the one thing I wanted to do was, we got to go up over here, because notice there's not the same amount of menu options. Let's go back over here. So I had there's two different methods in this pipeline over here. There's two different methods in this pipeline. One of them moves a single file, and the other moves all the files. And that's kind of like what you're seeing. Let me see here. That's kind of like what you're seeing here. That's what this is. This moves all the files. And I don't have to be under New Vegas to move Fallout 3 and all that. It knows that automatically. It is coded for that. So subfolders is probably not going to work properly. Like if you have, like, let's say Fallout 3, let's say you have Fallout 3 textures. It doesn't really account for that. What I would have to do is I'd have to account for a subfolder within that, or I could look at the category name that comes from the Nexus itself. I could look at that. I might look at that a little bit later. And you can name the files whatever you want. There's a localization in here where you basically give it the file name that you want it to have. All right, let's see if we can locate our file name right here. This is where you specifically tell it how you want your file name to look when it's downloaded. Now, the application checks to see, let me check our time here real quick. The application checks to see if the downloaded file has the legacy format with all the dashes. If it does, it automatically assigns the file name to that name. And I think that's anything before like June 11th. Anything I think like June 11th or June 11th back of 2026. And that way, whenever we're talking about files, we're all talking the same thing. Like, when we say, oh, hey, I put this in my game, this is where it's at. You could look at the mod ID and see it as well. But that way we know exactly which file we use, not just the mod ID, but the specific file. And that's with me, my naming convention. I like the version first, because that way, let's see if you can see it over here. It actually puts the version. See, it'll actually have the file name, then the version, then it has the mod ID, and then the file ID. So that way I can go right back to that specific download page, or I can go to the mod ID. Either one will work just fine. But I like seeing the file ID as well. And that gives me that unique identifier. Let's see what else we got here. So yeah, moving, and the reason I did manage download is, let's say that I'm downloading stuff for Skyrim, and I'm currently modding Skyrim. Well, there's a mod that I want right now, because this application is independent. It does not require a mod manager. A mod manager can talk to it through a name. It can actually talk. It can talk to another application using a named pipe, which is built into the libraries that this program uses. So you can use that feature to inter-process communicate. But this thing right here is completely independent. it does everything on its own. I can send data back to the mod manager that I use, the one that I wrote, kind of like the interface thing. Um, I can send data back to that if I want, or vice versa, if it need be. That's something I want to work on because I don't really know what kind of data I want to pass back and forth. So I'm going to have a definition before I can even begin coding it to see how I want it to work. Archive previous version, I mentioned that earlier on how that works. Those are your two reports. You can open an archive if you download an archive. These are moved, so they no longer exist where they're supposed to be. So, but you can actually open it. So I could download something. Once I download it, I can just go right click on it and I say I want you to open it, and it basically does the open archive. The framework here has a standard open archive. I don't think it's 410. I think that's location. It's got a standard open archive, and you just pass it the name of the archive file you want to open, and it does the rest. That's kind of like what that does. And you can see it here. If you're kind of curious, you could go over here and look in the menu, and you can find where it says open archive. It uses 470. And F-link, that's the link of this item here. It's kind of sets that up for you. They all don't have the F-link. Like some of these don't have an F-link. See, this one doesn't have it. See, but this one does. And it knows the difference. So it allowed me to gate certain menu options. If certain menu options apply, you'll see them. If they don't, they don't. But it's really the same thing. It does the exact same thing. This one here, manage download. These do the same thing, except this only moves a single file. This moves all the files, which is what I did. So let's say I'm modding Skyrim, and I'm like, oh, that's a brand new version of a mod I already have in my game. I want that immediately. So let's say I'm downloading mods. I want that one immediately. So I can just say, oh, I want to manage the download. It automatically copies it over. My mod manager application sees it and it puts it up on the available download list. I can go right click on it, build it using the full mod utility, or just, it'll kind of build itself, and then I can copy it into the game and I'm good to go. And then I can hop back over here and pick up where I left off. That's really what that does. You can open the location for the archive if you want to see where they're at. You can delete a download if you don't want it. It goes by where this download sits. So it doesn't really delete them. When it moved them to your managed folder over here, it doesn't really delete those. It only deletes the ones that it directly downloaded. Search file, this is where you can go in and you literally you can grab off the Nexus. At least you used to. They changed it so you couldn't necessarily grab a file name. Normally I could just drag and I can, mark and I can copy, and then I can paste the file name in here, and it literally would tell you if I had it in one of my repositories somewhere, one of my drives somewhere. But that's why I included the file list thing to where you can kind of create your own cache or let it kind of go dig it up to see if you've got it. However, that one can literally check as many different devices as you want looking for a file. So if you got like 10 devices, you can literally put them in priority order and it checks one right after another until it finds it. That way you can locate the file. I use it in my mod manager so that I don't have to, I just literally select that file and say, okay, look, this is what I want. I don't care where you get it from. I don't care which drive it comes off of. And then it just says, yep, I found it. Here you go. And I'm good to go. And I think that's about it. Filter, again, allows you to basically filter so that it only shows certain results. That's just that's just a standard kind of a function that's in almost every single, it's part of that core framework. So if you can do one thing, if you can do it in one, you can do it in all of them. That's pretty much it. Like I say, you can swap the games around. I'm going to finish up doing New Vegas here, and then I'm going to swap over and do Fallout 4, and then I'm going to go do Skyrim Special Edition. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's this thing is pretty much kind of done as far as I'm concerned. Like, I'm not really too interested in getting this stuff right here done right now. That's going to take some other coding, and I don't want to put it specifically in this program. I want it to be generic calls that I put in a library somewhere, and then therefore every single application now has access to that functionality rather than it being specifically in this, and then I got to copy and paste it over. Yeah, I want to, that's kind of like the direction I want to go with that. But this is pretty much it. All your downloads will appear down here, especially if they're large, and the times are pretty accurate. Right now, the process, the remaining time, or the amount, the time, I think it's how the percentage of it that's done is going to be black. It should be green. I'm not sure why it's black. I think somehow the style information is not getting set up properly. I'll have to look into that, and that's probably something that has to do with this framework, so it's probably gonna affect all the frameworks. I just need to figure out where it's at in the library or the framework, and then, retro the change across and then recompile. It should be good to go. But that's pretty much what this program does and how it works. So, it's not gonna be too much longer, and I'm gonna cut this into the wild and let people kinda just use it. You can use it to, download files from the Nexus and give them the file name you want them to have. You can use the legacy name. You can use their name if you want. Just depends on what you wanna do. Alright, guys, I hope you have a good evening, and, I will chat at everybody a bit later.